Revolution Radio proudly presents live from Phoenix, Arizona, the Truth Denied Talk Radio with host Roxy Lopez. Join us here for topics you won't hear about on mainstream news, such as chemtrails, GMOs, nutrition, and conspiracy facts regarding your personal sovereignty. Humanity is 7 billion strong. We are the majority. And now, live from the Valley of the Sun, your host, Roxy Lopez.
And welcome. It is Friday the 13th, and boy, are we're having some technical issues here, people. Welcome to the Truth Denied Talk Radio. I will be your host this evening, Roxy Lopez. If you have any questions, if you're listening and you're not logged into freedomslips.com, go ahead and log in there and go into the chat room, and our lovely producer, Thomas, will go ahead and pick up any questions. You all know my guests. There's many of you who are very interested and wanted Max Spiers to come back to the show because when he was first on the show, we did cover, just the gamut, if you will. We're going to dive a little deeper now, and I just want to let everybody know something. It's not just you, all right, who are having issues. We're all having issues. I spoke with Laura Eisenhower, as you well know, Dwight Eisenhower's granddaughter, and we spoke last night. They're going through it, okay, and she's on the front lines as well with the message of love and the message of transparency, the message of MK Ultra, the mind control, the lies, the deceit, and even aware of, in the movements of activism, just major mayhem and even corruption. All right? So this is where we have to become very, very discerning. And these are the lessons if we're up for them. And I did speak with a gentleman last night who I'm also trying to get help for, who's very much having the same experience that my guest this evening is going to talk about. This isn't a doom and gloom show. This is, for one, to let all the people who are out there who are experiencing either technical issues in their lives, just with their computers or their websites or in activism, communication problems. Suddenly, those you could communicate well with, you no longer can. Something's breaking down communication between people who love each other. Interference in your thoughts, that's another one. Heavy anxiety is another one. Over 200 comments were posted to a thread that I asked if anyone was feeling anxiety, etc. This is ongoing because we did speak about this this past Tuesday with Makia Freeman, who is also an individual who is on the front lines, who is also working with many people around the world in energy fields. So I could list, and the list does go on and on and on as to how many people are working with these energy fields. James Gilliland out of ESETI Ranch is going to be back next month. He wants to discuss this again. It seems to be a subject matter that's not going away. So hang in there. I even made a post on Facebook that 2013, this year, has turned out to be one of the most challenging years I've ever encountered. And that is the truth. I love all of you who help me, who write to me, who offer solace, who offer prayer, who offer love. And I'm going to tell you, I heard it from the shamans for 20 years, and I'm beginning to practice it myself more and more. And that is, if indeed we as a humankind wish to move forward, there are two important things we need to do. One is unify the consciousness. The other is unify our hearts. Because somehow through everything I am personally going through and those around me who are suffering loss, loved ones dying, family members dying, family members getting cancer in the, discovering it in the end stage of cancer, people losing pets, farm animals, people losing farms, homes, jobs. We have to stick together. I cannot stress that enough. And we have to attempt, at least, people, to approach the world with thoughts, words, and deeds of love. Believe me, it's trying my patience to do it myself. I want to get angry at the entities of the system around me who screw with me daily. It's not going to help me. I have to approach everything with love. My dear friend Max Spiers is going to talk about some current situations, and what I would like everybody to do that's listening right now is to please hold the space for Max to be able to talk with us. Max has had one attack after the other today. Max is getting bombarded, and Max is still here. We are on the air because of a cell phone on my end, because I do not know what's happened with my communication with the station through Skype. It just won't work. So, with that in mind, I am on the cell phone, and Max is here with us, and our producer Thomas is going to just keep an eye on everything for us so that we can continue this show and this very important communication with all of you. So those of you who are interested, drop what you're doing and really join us in this space, please, and hold the space so that Max can get out what he needs to get out. And I'm not going to give the background for Max. He's been here before, and those of you know Max, you have a lot of questions for Max. I've already seen the questions. I want to get Max on the air. And Max, I want you to know, my friend, that you are safe in this space, and we're going to just carry this show with you and go wherever you need to go, and you get to say whatever you need to say to the public. So, Max, please welcome.
Hi, Roxy. Yeah, it's a crazy day, huh? Seems like it's usually Friday the 13th is a lucky day for me, but it seems haywire today.
Yeah, there is anything that I mentioned in the intro here make sense to you?
Yeah, I think since everything went digital, the more connections we have to the digital energy allows the AI system that's pretty much running this planet now to have more control. And so,
what's AI? What is the AI system?
Yeah, AI is artificial intelligence, and the more everybody has kind of slipped into the digital communication systems through television, through everything being Googled, through telephone network, everything is now digitized like that. It takes on its own intelligence, so it has a way, because now it has its own agenda. The AI system takes on has its own personality, and is now has its own consciousness, and is now kind of calling the shots on a bigger level. So
okay.
Yeah, that's what's going on.
So no one's really controlling the artificial system.
It's taken on its own. It has its own force now, its own consciousness. I was speaking to a friend of mine, name's Miles Johnson. Johnson, who did the Basis series, and we were talking about how when you're on Skype, how if you can Skype somebody from across the other side of the world, and you do it, and there's no delay when you speak. Now there should be at least a second, a 2-second, 3-second delay when you're speaking over Skype, because it has to transmit to the satellite up and then back down to the computer again, and there seems to be no delay. And that doesn't make any sense. So unless we're being told an alternative truth about what is really going on and how the laws of physics work in terms of a planet revolving around the sun, and that the basic, physics 101 that we're taught in school, unless that has all been a complete lie, then it doesn't make any sense how it's working. There should be a delay. So I'm thinking that the setup that we have now, we're more in like a grid system, in a setup, like everything is set up in a giant grid rather than a circular, old-fashioned way of thinking in terms of science. I think that the whole basic building blocks of what we're told of how everything is set up has been a complete lie.
Okay, that actually makes sense. That makes a lot of sense to me. And then what's with, and we'll get into this in a little bit later in the show, because I know that you want to bring up negativity connected with the truth movement at the moment, and I definitely see that, but as well. But let's back up, and we'll get into that for sure, and I won't forget because it's very important information. What is, without using the movement as an example, bigger picture, what is with the negativity anyway, like the heaviness of the negativity that seems to be surrounding people? Anything that can go wrong does, and all that kind of garbage and nonsense that seems to be escalating. What is that? Where is that actually coming from? Is it being projected? Is it being projected from somewhere else onto us?
Okay. I think that you can go, if you go back right to the beginning, and from how I understand it, from flash memories that I have, the beginning of creation, I think the central point of everything originally came from a point of love, or a point of heart consciousness. And then to understand itself, that split up into two opposing sides. So what we would say, quote unquote dark and quote unquote light, so that the original self could understand itself better. It split into two, and then that was, I don't know. I think when it comes to time, there is no timeline on that, because in truth, it doesn't exist. I think the universe always was here. There wasn't a time. There was no beginning and no end to it. But then it split itself into and created the duality that we have as the 3D construct that we're living in now. So if we're just taking it from the perspective of 3D, it separated itself, and now we go through cycles and phases, and we're at a point now where the dark, the quote-unquote dark, seems to be in complete control of everything. And as it's had and been in control for a very long period of time, certainly if we're going in time now, certainly for the last 50,000 years, 60,000 years, that it has been in control, and it's used the concept of master and slave for that period of time. There's going to be an opportunity in a window that is coming up now, and it's the biggest window that's been around in all of the cycles, certainly to memory for me. And there is an opportunity where we can leave the 3D matrix prison that we're in and step outside and not live in the master-slave concept anymore. Now, the controlling consciousness that has its grip around the matrix that we're living in is terrified to lose control that it's had, because it's completely comfortable, obviously, with the control it had. So it seems like almost it will do anything and say anything to maintain that control, so that we don't step outside of the window, like this tiny door that's opening. It's almost like a literal stargate or a portal that's opening, and certain people consciousness can choose to leave, or if we stay, we have to go through another cycle, another 10 different cycles, another 50,000 years stuck in the same thing without the memory again. So we have an opportunity to step out and do that. So it's upped everything, and it's upped all its focus to make sure that it keeps the people here lulled into like a hypnosis or an amnesia, so we don't step out. And there's a group of us who are here now, volunteers who come here to help out the people. I think because there's there's many people here who've already chosen not to leave, and because they still want to learn the lessons of being stuck in the cycle of master-slave kind of cycle. And they've already made that decision to stay, so they'll stay and they'll go through that again. But for those of us who want to leave, there is an opportunity to step outside of this matrix that we're in. And kind of, I don't like the word ascension too much because it kind of ties in with like the biblical or religious thing about being saved or stepping out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's almost like if you're awakened or you're conscious enough that this whole system that we're in is false and it's all an illusion. If you can really, really realize that, you can step out and have a new reality and build a new paradigm. And I think we're at that pivotal point. I really think that 13 is so crucial. That now, the reason they use the number 13 and the letter M so much is because that is the symbol for the birth and death cycle. That is the symbol to keep reinforcing that, because 13 is in our subconscious, and we all know somewhere in us that number is one of the keys or the locks to holding us in here. And it's interesting, we're doing the show on Friday the 13th, and it is 2013. Anyway, so we have an opportunity. There's a window right now to step out, and the ones who want to will kind of step forward and lead. But I think the majority of people want to, or beings, want to continue with that 3D matrix and still stay in it and do the lessons over again. You with me, Roxy?
Yes, I am. Absolutely. Max, can you describe a little bit more about the opportunity? For instance, if you, like yourself, thus far, and many others who decide to stay, is there a reason to stay so that we can, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but so that we can change the dynamic here? Is that possible? Is that possible to absolutely change the dynamic on this planet?
What I think, and I've been thinking about this a lot today, I think humanity has almost like the mindset of being an abused wife. We have been abused for so long that we almost think that we think it's acceptable, and we accept the torture and the trauma that we go through because we think we're not good enough for it, and that the reasons for the abuse can be wrapped up and tied in a bow for because they're doing it for the better of you. We care about you. We're doing this for you, like a husband would abuse a wife. And because now we've got to the point where I think it's when you hold a person's self-esteem down low enough, you can create a prison without walls, because when the person doesn't feel good enough about themselves, they'll never step out, even though the door is right in front of them. And I think collectively, humanity is at that point where they feel like they're not worth any more than that. So why would they step out, even though there is a door right in front of them? I think that when we actually accept the fact that this has happened to us and we can identify it and know that for sure, then there's a way to start healing it. I think it's identifying it, and I think it's accepting that. I think a lot of us have to accept that collectively, that's been going on. I'm just trying to think here clearly and trying to give an analogy, Roxy. Well, sorry, can you repeat the question?
No, you're doing fine. I was going to say, when you say that humanity needs to identify something, what exactly do we need to identify? What you said, do we need to identify that we've been conditioned and that this is not right to live in a slave environment or an abusive environment, and we need to identify that so that we can basically have the solution, the remedy, and sort of so that we can stop being abused by the abuser, so to speak.
I think, and I think that the only way to do that is to actually accept that that's been happening to you, so that you can change it.
Understood. How do we recognize it? Because I totally get what you mean, I used to work with women in domestic violence cases, and I won't get into that too much, but just for as far as what's relevant. And women did not know they were being abused. That's why they stayed in the relationship for 20 years. They were conditioned to believe, as you have just said, Max, that it's classic, that they're worthless.
Yeah.
So they're so lucky to have their abuser. At least somebody loves them, but it's not love. So we see this set up in this matrix. The whole matrix is built on that lie. And just saying back to what you said, which I think is very, very imperative, isn't it interesting how the system always appears and uses language to try to convey to the masses that they are just trying to help?
Yes. Yeah, completely. And I think that so going to the individual experience with, say, abuse like that, you draw to you, so the person then draws to you a thought prison that says that if you feel like you're not good enough and you feel like you're not worth enough, then you're going to energetically draw somebody to you, whether you're male or female. You're going to draw somebody to you who abuses you because you're playing out what you. If you live a life where you are the imagination of yourself, essentially we're all walking around, and the reality that we're building is the reality of what we believe we are. Thoughts create the reality around you, and so what you truly believe about yourself is the reality that you're going to manifest around you. That's how you create. If you abuse a being, male or female, when they're a child, and you imprint into their auric field, into their energy signature, what they should believe about themselves, then you can manipulate them to draw anybody into their life that you want them to, under the guise of them being a savior or under them being anything. And so then that's how you can create a remote control person that way, if you know exactly how you're doing it. And so going on an individual level, the male or female will then draw somebody into their life who is an abuser, and that's because they feel they're not worthy enough, or that's what they believe that is for them. And they manifest that, and they keep doing it, and they keep doing it until they have realized that they are worth more than that, and then they don't manifest that into physical reality. And I'm just kind of trying to draw lines of that's on a collective level. That's what humanity has done. If we didn't believe that if we believed that we were worth more than that, we wouldn't draw an oppressive prison like warden consciousness to us that's repressing us.
Right.
But I'm trying to
right. Understood. No, that completely makes sense. Absolutely. And what is different today? And we'll talk about this because we're going to go to a break here shortly, Max. But what I'm going to want to get into is what is different today, and I mean specifically today, the 13th. Friday the 13th. I want to find out a little bit more about specifically how you are being targeted today, and explain this to the audience so they can understand it. Also, I am definitely going to, when we get back from the break, I'm going to give everybody a phone number to call. And a person who actually says to say hello to you, Max, which is Lorian Fenton. She's listening to the show, and she's willing to help. Hi, Lorian, and she wants to help anybody that's out there right now. That is having these issues of whether it be attacked or what have you. But we'll explain it a little bit closer to the when we come back.
I think it's awesome that we're doing that. I think it's awesome that we're doing a show which is giving back and helping out people, because there's so much, there's a massive information right now that's out there, and, we can talk about that anytime. Right now, I think it's really good to give back something because a lot of people are feeling it at the moment.
And welcome back, everybody. Thanks for your patience as well. Kind of a hard subject matter, but at the same time, I didn't realize how many people out there are really suffering. I didn't know until I started asking. So, Max, do you find that you meet a lot of people who are sort of in your boat? Because you do have a unique training and background, as well as what happened to you throughout your life in your earlier days. And you're welcome to talk more on that, or if you want to just stay in the moment with what's happening to people around us right now, you can go either way.
Okay, yeah. I think what's happened over the last, maybe 2 years is that there's been an explosion of people waking up and realizing that that something's going on, something that people didn't think was going on, and there's been a lot of whistleblowers come out and exposing this now. So they've had to try and put a lid on it. And what's happened, I think, to the truth movement in general is that it's almost turning into the Western mainstream media, and there are a lot of people in there who are trying to shut it down from the inside. There's so much disinformation going on, and I think we're losing track of the point of why we started it in the first place, which was to open people's eyes to the fact that perhaps the things that we've been told, the basic things that we've been told about this planet on all different levels, have been lies. And as people wake, there's almost like been traps been set, so that when people start thinking maybe this isn't right, or maybe things didn't happen the way they thought, there's people in the truth movement who are there to catch them and kind of push them into another trap, another thought prison. Because the consciousness that is controlling this planet doesn't care which trap you're into. It doesn't make any difference to them as long as you fall into one of them and hold on tightly to it. So whether it's Scientology or I'm not damning any of these. I'm just saying that they're setups. There's like loops around the planet. There's like energetic vibrational loops around the planet, and they're all vibrating at different speeds depending on how awake you are. And as soon as you grab hold of one of them, you can kind of fall into the trap of believing that's the only truth. And then it's like a spider's web, and there seems to be like an octopus in the middle, and its tentacles kind of wrap round all the way around the planet. And it's just one more, I keep using the word trap, it's just one more way to capture people. It's a new version to capture people. Like the New Age movement was initially a psyop that was set up by the intelligence agencies to capture more people who were waking up and realizing that the mainstream religions didn't suit them. So they created another one, and that was the New Age movement, originally to promoting the love and light, and not wanting to accept that there is any darkness, thinking that if you only thought about love and light, that would free people that way. When in truth, it's just another way of denying what's going on. It's another way of an ostrich sticking its head in the sand and not identifying the truth in another way. For me, when I realized from when I was very young, I knew I had memories from when I was very young that a lot of the institutions that I was going to as a child at kindergarten, and I used to spend a lot of time in universities because my parents were connected to a lot of the advanced academic studies in the UK, and there was screen memories placed on me to make me imagine that certain things had happened to me, and that it was regular. I would go to school in the morning, and I would have a regular day at school, and then come home. And as I got older, when I turned about 17, 18, it came back to me all at once that a lot of times when I'd go to hospital for an injury, or when I'd spend certain days at school, that other things were going on. And I think it was a very calculated way. I've had to be careful now. I'm 36 now, and a lot of the people that I've drawn into my life have been there as MK programming to keep me from furthering myself. Now, there's been setups to make sure that I fail at certain things, because if I keep getting perpetually caught in these life cycles, then I won't I won't be able to expose the things that I came for in the first place.
Sure. That makes sense, and that took you a while in your life to kind of figure out, the full circle of it, didn't it? Of what happened, and then what you were supposed to be able to come forward with. And I can certainly appreciate that. I know there are probably a lot of people who as well. I'll tell you something that's very interesting that's going on right now. I'm going to have my producer check this for me. Thomas, I'm putting a number in there for you right now. About a few minutes ago, there's a call. I'm not going to give the number live on the air yet. But when you're on a cell phone, right, and you get another call, and they either leave a message or they hang up, well, the call has stayed on the other line this entire time. And the number is showing. Oh, that's your number. Okay, why is it showing, though, that it just called me? Sorry. And it's showing Georgia.
Oh, that's where I'm at.
Okay. Okay, sorry about that. But it's showing that you're calling me over and over. Are you doing that?
No.
You're not calling me over and over again, right?
No, ma'am. It's just the first time.
Okay, because it keeps ringing through. Like, it's the most bizarre thing. Is if I don't know. Thanks. I'm glad I showed you the number because it just keeps calling through, and I hope that that's not going onto the air because it just keeps ringing as if that phone number is calling me repeatedly on the other line.
We're not hearing it.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad we're not hearing it. Okay, so back to you, Max. Thank you, Thomas. So another thing I want to mention real quickly is that Lorian Fenton is Supersoldier.summit.com. That is her website. That's what she does. She helps individuals like Max and others, and we'll also be putting her in touch with another gentleman that contacted me last night and spoke to me for a couple of hours, actually, about the same thing. He's having, oh my gosh, he's very scientific about what's occurring to him, Max. But in a nutshell, Max, I know that you don't like, personally, you've mentioned to me you don't really like to use the term super soldier, but is that what you are, or is that what you were trained to do?
Yeah. So what the term super soldier is, I think, is that they had picked specific people from specific bloodlines with specific genetics, and they were aware that these beings were incarnating at that specific time, and they would take them and use this. And this was an extension of the Third Reich's Uberman project, which was to create a military controlled being who could work in any level of the military. So they would enhance them physically, and they would enhance them with ways to be able to, like for spies or for soldier work. But it's not. The word super soldier implies that it would be something like always something to do with literally becoming like a Superman, a version of a human being. And I think that it's to be aware that these people have been used on multiple levels, so they can be in all different walks of life. I think that most of us who've been involved in these projects have a front altar of the mind, which is the day-to-day personality that they use, and they could be a teacher, or they could be a lawyer, or they could be somebody who is a student. That the front personality really is of no consequence. Really, they have programming so they will be able to infiltrate all different walks of life and get information. I mean, I learned about how sexuality is used to download information. So a lot of women were being used to set up to be with very important politicians or entertainers, and they would seduce these people in high positions, sleep with them, And then when they would sleep with them, this information would then be downloaded through the act of sex into them, the information, and they could come back to whoever was controlling them, and then through another sex act to give the information back to them. So sex magic and sex ritual is used heavily with these people. So when the term super soldier, I think soldier can just be any form of enhanced being. So
right.
the levels of control are vast. That's the only problem I have with the word soldier, is because people immediately think it's something to do with on the battlefield, running, fighting with a gun. Soldier doesn't have to necessarily mean that.
Right. Tell me a little bit more about, I don't know if we should call it a conspiracy against a movement. I don't know how to clarify it at all. Yeah. Because you just gave me some of the information about it not too long ago. But there is the Super Soldier Summit. Yeah. Which, if those of you who want to go online and check it out, again, that's Lorian Fenton, so go to supersoldiersummit.com, is obviously an organization and to expose this whole super soldier, mind control, electronic harassment, etc. And I see here that there was a Super Soldier and Mind Control Summit 2, which happened apparently on May 17th, 18th, 19th of this year, 2013. Did something go wrong with that at all? Or is there something that erupted out of that you'd like to talk about?
So that was the second one that happened. The first one that happened was in 2012, and that was in Marin County, and that was the first. I met Lorian at the end of 2011, and it was an unusual meeting. I was at the Awake and Aware conference, and I was there with James Rink, and we were just listening to the speakers. And when I came out to the front, Lorian was there. She had a desk there, and she was selling, or she was promoting something to do with some of the work that she'd done. And I caught Lorian's eye, and we started speaking, and there was an immediate kinship between her and I. And it was very easy to talk to her, and it was very free-flowing. And we went out to dinner that night, and I sat with Lorian, and we talked for 3 or 4 hours. And the more we talked, the more I remembered that there was some connection somehow with her from a long time ago. And we stayed in contact for a few months after that. And the more we talked, I think the more memories that came up for Lorian in connection with rituals that happened to her when she was younger. Now, I am 20 years younger than Lorian, but because there's so much messing around with timelines that's gone on, especially in connection with Montauk, it's very difficult to hold, say, if something happened where I looked a certain age and somebody else looked a certain age that didn't make sense, then you would immediately dismiss it, because that wouldn't be possible. But because there's so much time shifting and time jumping that's going on, anything is possible like that. And Lorian had some memories that came up for her, and I'm sure that you could speak to her about that sometime. But she had remembered seeing me in connection with some of the sex magic rituals that went on. And when she told me about that, it triggered the memories to come back to me. Now, what they seem to have done is they have mixed and matched and bred a lot of the people who've been involved in these things from specific bloodlines. They've mixed and matched this up to see which genetics would be best. And there's also this whole underground black market kind of dark pornography rings that run in connection with this as well. And they are stealing the sexual energy, which is connected with...
Hello?
I think we lost him.
Okay, we lost him. Okay. We'll get him back. Is he supposed to call us back?
Yes, ma'am.
Thomas?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
He's supposed to call me if he drops.
Okay, then he'll try to do that. Listen, I want to fill people in on something. Max had contacted me yesterday evening, and he let me know that he was having a full-blown, horrible 24 hours, and what he's expressing is fears from a long time ago, and that's what he was talking about when he got disconnected, have been resurfacing for him. So if anybody knows about MK Ultra type programs or what screen memories are, they're implants in the brain, from what I can understand, from other individuals who have been on the show who've talked about it, who have experienced this. And what happens, and I was going to ask our dear friend Max about what is the trigger, because something seems to trigger, and then they get this whole memory bank full of junk, really, from past, whether it was true or not true, whether they really had the experience or not. And it seems that this has happened to Max in the past 24, 48 hours. That's why he's having, and I think he's doing a great idea, guys, listeners, of at least getting this out. Lorian Fenton, as I said, who is the Supersoldiers.com and also a host here on Revolution Radio, Lorian just also has been listening and staying, here to help Max as well. And she also mentioned that every time she has Max on the show, he gets cut off from her too. Yes, Max, are you there?
Yeah, isn't that what I was just about to speak about? That, yeah, not surprised really.
Yes, I just explained that, and I let the audience know, Max, that what you have is you get a trigger, and then fears come up or resurfacing, some that appear to be memories, some that are just merely screenshots of a past you never even had. Yeah. And then with the combination of it, right, it becomes very confusing, and then that fear is very, very paralyzing, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. Which are you referring to when you get triggered, when somebody is triggered in like day-to-day life, or what do you mean, Roxy?
Well, yes. I mean, and I was going to actually speak to you about that too. Triggering meaning, okay, in normal everyday life, whatever that means. In psychology, for instance, let's say your mother used to call you, blah blah blah, you moron. And so as an adult, you could be walking down the street, sitting on a bus, hearing the conversation 4 seats behind you, and the word moron comes up, and it triggers the emotion and the event of that argument way back when you were a kid, and what it made you feel like, shameful. Okay, with what you go through, it's even bumped up even more because it triggers sometimes things that are not real.
Triggers things
Does that make sense?
Triggers things that are not real, like, for example...
Yes, because mind control issues are feeding us all this fear garbage, and some of it, we never even experienced, but now we're fearful of something we've never even been through, but on a subconscious, we have these triggers, and all of a sudden we're afraid of, like, let's say, getting on a bus when we've never been afraid of getting on a bus before. So some things I was explaining to them, like with MK Ultra, it's screenshots of life you never really lived. Did that happen with you at times as well?
What I can say is, for me, I learned maybe 5 years back, one of the usually when to trigger me or anybody who's been connected, like deeply connected like that, it will be usually a combination of things rather than just a single word. It'll be a hand movement, a color, and a word with the inflection that's used on the word. Right, I found out that a trigger word for me was the word sunshine, and I would get certain emails from somebody, from different people, and they would close the email saying, "Hope you're well, sunshine," or I would see a picture of a rising sun, or on billboards there would be sometimes for coffee ads, you'd say, "Good morning, sunshine," and that word would, it took me a while to deprogram from that, and that word would throw me into a very slightly different version of myself, where I would be more susceptible and more suggestible to do certain things. Now, sometimes it will be that the symbol or the word sunshine will throw me into a slightly different altar, and then I am then open to get to a deeper level through something else. I've been noticing with license plates, there will be license plates in conjunction with billboards, and then perhaps with something that's on the radio as well. So maybe a certain song will come on, and then I will see. Like, the question is how could they tie that all together? But if you're understanding how the nature of this reality matrix is put together, it's very easy to do that. Why would I leave to go to the store at all of a sudden wanting to have a coffee at 9:35? All of a sudden I decide to have one. So I get in the car at that time, I turn the radio on, and then a certain song comes on, and then I pull up to the traffic lights, and I look up, and then there's something else, and then all of a sudden, through the combination of those three things, I have been subtly moved into a different version of myself, and not aware of it, and then I might do a number of different things. Now, connected to military spying and espionage, I could then be triggered to go to a certain place, and I have no clue. I would choose to sit down and maybe sit by myself and read the newspaper, and I'd find myself next to somebody who I had no clue why I was there, and they might be having a phone conversation, and then I might pick up some information from the phone conversation they had, unknowingly, and then that way it's downloaded to me. And the best way to have a spy is somebody who doesn't know that they are one, because then they can't be questioned, they can't be caught for doing something if they don't even know why they're doing it. I went through a period of awakening in 2006, and I lost 2 weeks of time, and I really don't even know to this day what happened. But I do know at the end of that 2 week period, I was sitting at home, and I had 2 DVDs, and I didn't even know where I bought them from. The 2 DVDs that I had was a series called Disinformation. It's these guys got together and they put together a series of about 6 episodes, and it has very, very interesting conspiracy stuff in it. And I also was left with a DVD of Total Recall, and I still to this day no idea where I came across them. But somewhere subconsciously, I was trying to put together what had happened to me. And hold on one second. Now, when I watched the Total Recall DVD, there are a lot of parallels in that movie, which is based on a book by Philip K. Dick, who was a writer about these things. And I learned a lot about myself from these 2 DVDs. And it was, like I said, it was a window of time where I had no...
But you don't know where those came from. You don't know how you got a hold of those.
No, I literally don't. But I did, I watched them over and over again, and I learned a lot from that. I mean, still now to this day, I go back and watch those, and I learn things. I think with movies and music that comes out now is so manipulated that information is given out to certain people through movies and through certain albums. And so I learned that way.
Okay, and I just want to let you know, Max, this is very cool. There's a person who is privately contacting me right now, and he's been listening, and he understands what you're saying, and he agrees. This is his experience. It's been very, very difficult for this person to convey, although this is the person I was speaking with last night. So he actually did take the time to tune in, and he understands what you're saying. So, he says, and he does agree with the cyber elements, the false memories, triggering false reactions. This is all that he goes through as well. Sexual manipulation, all the rest, Supersoldier implants. It's all being conveyed to him. So you are helping somebody, all right? He actually did tune in I asked him to tune in to hear what you had to say because I knew that you would be able to say something that helped him. You're speaking his language.
Okay,
okay? So this is really good news, and I'm hoping to put him in touch with Lorian if he's willing to get in touch with Lorian, and then at least that will be another person who actually starts to get some help. All right, so there you have it. And again, any of you out there that are relating to what Max is saying, and I mean on any level, if you are relating to what Max is saying, give us, contact us either through Facebook privately, or you can send me an email at info@thetruthTonight.com, or you can send Max an email. I will have all of that for you in the chat room because there are people who are willing to help. And again, I want to thank you all for tuning in to Revolution Radio. We wouldn't be able to do shows like this. As you well know, we're having a very open, complicated conversation with Max. We've got all kinds of technical issues, not coming from Revolution Radio side, by the way. Max is having problems with his phone. I had problems with Skype. We're having problems with the cell phone. So during the break, we kind of figured, we didn't figure anything out. We just reconnected again so that we wouldn't have this number continuing to call me over and over and over on the cell phone. So we've got that worked out. So, we just tear away all this interference that we're having. But as to Revolution Radio, we wouldn't, all of us, all the hosts here, we wouldn't have the opportunity to share with you real life stories, real information that helps so many. If we help one person, and so far on this show, it appears that we are actually helping one person out there right now who needs to connect probably with Lorian and a couple other people that are going to be recommended to help this man who's going through what Max has gone through as well. So even if we help one person, even if it changes the mind of one person, what is that worth to you? Well, it's priceless to me. It's absolutely a priceless message to reach out to humanity and help one. If it's one at a time, it only takes one. And so I want to thank all the listeners who are continual contributors to this show, to Revolution Radio, that we can stay on the air. We do still live in a world that's based on money. Things cost money. And so we are so very grateful that you're part of the community. You are just as important as our producers. You're just as important as all the hosts and all the guests. So you are part of the Revolution Radio family, and we thank you for helping us to stay on the air. Max, you were going to give us another example of what occurs. I thought it was a very good example when you used getting in your car, and then like sort of an alternative self kind of kicks in, another side of you. And if you remember the example, please give it. If you don't, we can move on. So
so I remember a lot of trips to hospital from when I was little. I think I told you on the last show that I did. I had an unusual birth, and I had something called the Harlequin effect, where I had a line go down the center of my body, and my body turned two different colors, and there was pictures taken, and it was in the British Medical Journal. But I do remember. And I was born colorblind too, so I remember a lot of tests being done. Interesting, kind of tests looking at different things when I was very, very little. But anyway, when I was 5 years old, I had gone to a friend's house, and I was coming back home to my mother's, and I was on a little bicycle, and I was carrying dominoes in my left hand, and the bike only had a brake where the left hand was, and I was going too fast for the bike. I lost control of the bike, and I ran into a thorn bush. And when I went back inside to see my mother, she pulled me aside and looked at me, and there was a black dot that had appeared in my left eye, and I had to be rushed to hospital. And there was a thorn that had gone into my left eye all the way in. Now, I remember being rushed to the hospital, but I don't remember anything else. I remember blacking out again, and there was damage done to my left eye.
And?
Sorry.
That's okay. And so there was damage done to your left eye because of this thorn. And did they remove the thorn?
Yes, I remember going through some. They didn't give me any anesthetic. They just pulled the thorn out. Now, I think I was put into a trigger, into an altar when they did it, because then I had 3 or 4 surgeries that were done over the next 5 years on my left eye. But what I think I was trying to get to is that I think that was probably a screen memory that was put there so that it would make it more understandable or more convincing to me why I had to keep going back to hospital with damage to my left eye. And friends of mine who have, since I've been an adult, who have seen me at certain times, have seen my left eye glowing, and that it kind of, in the dark, it grows up, and there's been unusual kind of movement in my left eye. So what I think is that there has been some cybernetics done to the left side of my body, and particularly in my left eye, because there was clearly defined 2 different parts of me. Now, my birthday is on the 22nd. My birthday is on winter solstice, 12/22/76, and that also ties in with the 22 is the number in the tarot card number for the card for the Fool in tarot, and the Fool is also the Joker, which is also the Harlequin. Now, interesting that I was born with something called the Harlequin effect, and all the injuries that I've had to my body have been on the left side of my body. All the scars are on my left arm, the scars on my left knee, and I have this damage to my left eye as well. So what I think they've done is reinforce the dualistic split that I have going on and programmed me in a very defined 2 separate ways, almost like there is, they've done something with, I think now, where they have 2 separate souls or 2 separate consciousnesses living in one single body. And that is how they've created some form of quote unquote double agent, or some form of espionage connected to 2 distinctly separate beings. And that's not discounting the possible multiple personalities through the dissociative identity disorder. This is a very specific thing to do with duality and to do with very separate parts of who I am, distinct 2 separate things. And I think there's a big possibility now, I've from information that people have come forward and told me who are connected to military intelligence, is that there is literally something about placing 2 consciousnesses within one body. And so 2 separate beings going through the experience inside one body. So does that make sense to you, Roxy? I know it's kind of complicated, but
it's a bit complicated, yes. It's a bit complicated. It's a little bit outside of the realm of my understanding, but I want you also to know that the gentleman that I told you I spoke to at length, who's listening right now, he's continuing to send me private messages that he wants to speak with you. I have his number to give to you. He is saying that he has had the same things, some, not all. He's talking about he was also born semi-colorblind. He's talking about a fake Kundalini experience in 1993. And he talked about 2 years ago his right eye was injured similarly. I think that's very interesting. But with his background, he expressed last night a lot of much more deeper aspects of this that are very, very similar to yours. And also, we're going to put Lori and Fenton in touch with him. I've just given him her contact information, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But again, I want the listening audience to know this is a safe place to exchange information and not be public like Max is. Max is public. He's gone public. He's sharing his experience with the world. Some people do not want to go public, and that's okay, because there are many people that are being worked with behind the scenes. Max, I just have to bring this into this at this very moment because of the heaviness of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
How do you, Max, how do you keep your sanity?
How do I keep my sanity? Well, there was a period of time leading up to 2008 where it wasn't easy at all, and day in and day out, certainly I would question my own sanity because it's because there's clearly a whole nother underground creation, or where creation is coming from, or where it's manifesting from, that opposes, when you wake up in the morning and you look outside and you see the sun coming up and you see day-to-day things that, you go to work and you come home, and that opposes everything that the experiences I've been going through, it can kind of make you think you're crazy. But then when I finally, when you start drawing people to you that have gone through similar experiences, and that you can, like with the gentleman who just spoke up then, who says he's been through similar things, that allows me to, the more people that came forward and said, hey, look, this has happened to me, it allowed me to realize that I wasn't crazy, that there were other people who've been going through the same thing. And so that reinforced it. And then the more comfortable, the more I've accepted those things, the easier it has become. So basically, other people have allowed me to, have helped me keep my own sanity.
Yes, absolutely. I can imagine that when you actually reach somebody else who's been through what you've been through, which is what Lorraine Fenton's work is all about, bringing people together that have had either mind control or been a party to a Supersoldier program of sorts. Bringing you all together really is probably very inspiring, very validating, and very healing for all of you to know that it's not just you. You're not losing your mind, and that the experience is real. I think that they say that people fear, some of the biggest fears that humans have. One of them is, of course, financial ruin, but one of them is, and it's high up there, it's in the top three, fear of losing their mind, fear of going crazy. So I can imagine, right, the kind of fear that you were in at the time when you thought, maybe I'm losing my mind, this isn't happening, or what is happening, or crossover realities. I can imagine. Now, do you think, Max, that you were ever used for something really, really bad?
Yeah. I remember in 2008 when I kind of, I'd always been chasing these subjects. I'd always been trying to uncover them. I'd always been drawn to these subjects since I was a kid. And I think I became obsessive with it, obsessively looking at why certain things were happening to me. So when I did have these memories come back in 2008, it wasn't as big a shock as if I was jumping from one point of not knowing anything to knowing, a whole lot in one go. The first set of memories that came back in 2008 were connections to an Asian triad gang, and I had memories of working in sync with specific triad gangs, and which tied in with when I was living in New Zealand. And I lived in New Zealand for 4 years, from 2000 to 2004, and it was very unusual circumstances that took me there. It didn't make any sense why all of a sudden I needed to be there, but a certain person ended up being there, so I needed to be there out of the blue. And it seemed like there was nothing particularly that stood out in my life that was there, but in 2008, I realized I was living a dual life while I was there. And there were connections to it's not something that I want to go into now, Roxy, but I know
that's okay.
Rather than me go down that rabbit hole, I can just tell you that there were connections to all kinds of organized crime that were going on at the time.
Okay, and that's exactly what I was talking about. I've read a lot about it, and I just want the public to be aware that the Supersoldier camp and the likes of them, and MK Ultras and mind control projects, etc. I just want the public to be aware that this is, where you've got your assassins are generated out of this, and etc. I want them to know how lethal this is as well. Now, can you do me a favor? And we're going to go back to the negativity connected with the truth movement.
Yeah.
There is a person by the name of Casbolt. Can we talk about Casbolt? What is happening? Is this a man? And apparently he attended the Supersoldier Summit, I'm understanding. But he is, I guess, somebody that you want the public to know or not? What is happening with this particular individual?
Sure. I don't think I'm going to go into too much detail. His name in detail on Michael Prince, James Casbolt. But my ties and connections to Michael stem from when I was very young, and there were connections from Canada in 1976 and to Brighton, which is where I was on paper officially born in December of 1976. We come from similar bloodlines on one side of our family, and we see my memories of Michael came up from really in 2006, and I remember when I had read some of his work, that we had remembered each other, and I was in contact with him. And as far as my memories go with Michael, they are crystal clear from about 4, 5, and 6 years old. Now, we went through similar lines of programming, so they were kind of tied in that way. And I think that Michael spent his time as a very young child, on a base, growing up on a base in Canada, in Nelson, in Canada. Now, when I was conceived, both my parents were at that exact spot at that time. That I wasn't born in Canada. I was conceived there, and I was actually born in Brighton 6 months after they got back. But there was something that happened there where genetically, I think there was some enhancement or some manipulation going on to me, and there was some sort of tying in with what happened with Michael there, so that we would again meet each other as we grew up. Now, I'm not sure on the specifics of why and what is going on with that. And I know that we had some similar programming going on in terms of the Aldebaran group. Now, Aldebaran is a star system that is, from what I understand, something like 15 light years away, but don't quote me on that. And the group that we know as the Third Reich, which is in the 40s, is connected to them, but that isn't really the Third Reich. It's this consciousness that comes from there, which is connected to the Anunnaki consciousness and the Aryan bloodline. They've been in control of vast majority of this planet since. So Atlantis fell 13,000 years ago. They were part of the collapse of Atlantis that happened, and they were the dark sorcerers in Atlantis, and they were the scientists in Atlantis. Now, what's happened now is we're going through the shift that happened 13,000 years ago. There was a window opening then. It is very similar to the window that's opening now, and this particular group wants to make sure and maintain control. So if they can make sure that nobody leaves now, then they can continue with their control again. And so I'm just saying I have connections to Aldebaran as well, and that consciousness, and the Anunnaki consciousness, because I'm carrying a large portion of Anunnaki DNA. But there is a rebellion faction of Anunnaki, which is what I'm connected to, who doesn't believe that this slave master, this subjugation of species on this planet should continue anymore. And I'm I'm behind the group that wants to set that free. So, and that's where Michael and I's mind and eyes separate. I don't wish for the continuation to continue to create slave species on this planet. I don't want it to continue anymore. So what I'm saying is there's a rebellion faction which wishes to cease this to continue.
Right. And what is the way, by the way? Those of you who are asking me to call in the show, by the way, the number is, get a pen, it's 347-688-2902. That's 347-688-2902. When you say that you'd like it to end, you don't mean just for you, do you?
No, I'm saying that I wish that I'm wanting the slave species, the way that it has continued for the last 13,000 years to subjugate a specific group on this planet to make them serve. I wish that would end in general. Not for me, and the way that it is set up, right now.
How do you make it end? How do you dispose of it? How do you, who's in charge? You know what I mean? Is it alien? Is it the several different species that have been noted to cause problems here? And is it, have they also infiltrated, government like the Archons and the Greys, etc.? How do we change it? How do we get that to, which is so very wrong? How do we get it to stop?
Archon is just a word for a consciousness that is here, which is taking over. Archon is just a kind of a general word for any consciousness that is here, kind of taking over. So what's happened is Gaia or Earth seems to be like a jewel in this part of the galaxy, and it's one of the the lost planet, one of the main lost planets that hasn't been taken over here. So what they're trying to do is set up a complete takeover of this planet and make it into a complete prison planet and tie it in with the other planets that they've created as prison planets and lock them all together. So sorry, can you hear me, Roxy?
Yes, I'm here.
Sorry, I can hear a radio in the background, that's all.
Oh, that was me.
That's why we have a caller. Okay, caller, could you do me a favor? Let Max finish his thought, and you must turn your radio down or even off would be more helpful. Okay, caller? Okay. So Max, go ahead if you want to finish your thought, and then we'll let the caller come on. They would like to speak with you.
Yeah, so what's happened, I think, is that they're trying to create this is one of the most important. If you can create this into a completely imprisoned planet, and they're trying to connect it up with all the other imprisoned planets. So the group that's doing it, initially the Anunnaki, which is a Sirius B consciousness connected to Sirius B and Aldebaran, they are trying to completely make it a prison planet here. But I think there's a group called the Orion group, which comes from the Orion star system, which is connected to Alpha Draconis too, which is the ones who are in total control of what's going on. They manufactured the human being as we know it as to be a slave species to mine for specific necessities that they wanted for extra-dimensional travel. They were looking for the gold that's here. Symbolically, the capstone on top of the pyramid was when this capstone is placed onto the top will be when the great work of ages is finished. So we're at that point right now. So I think what I was trying to say was, this is a extraterrestrial war, and this is kind of like the final piece in the puzzle. If they can take this planet over completely, then they have finished the job, essentially. This is kind of the final piece. Earth is the final piece in the game.
Gotcha. And now, Max, if you're ready, I'm going to allow the caller. Caller, welcome to the show. You're on The Truth Tonight Talk Radio. And, of course, my guest is Max Spiers. And did you have something that you wanted to contribute to the show?
Hi. Well, first of all, thank you so much. It's lovely to have a chance to talk to you, Roxy, after all these exchanges. And, Max, it's great to hear your stories. There's a lot of this kind of information around I've been exposed to for the past 20 years, and it's kind of cool to have somebody who's kind of outside of the system, so to speak, who's done the work, who can kind of see the way it works and piece part of these I'm getting tongue-tied. Piece part of these possible piece part of these pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah.
And so I'm just calling in because I deal with this all the time, and it's been most of my life. I think I came here, my understanding is I came here from a higher plane to help out in answer to the call. There's the Dolores Cannon Volunteers concept, and I think it was back in 91 or 92. I'm a professional musician. I have a couple albums out. I've stopped performing for the time being because, and I guess it's a tangent if I'm wondering here, but the perception is part of what I do is copied by the archons.
Okay.
Because it seems like, and I think this is, I'm wondering, I'm sure, but part of your point is what the archon presence is here for, and is, we're all learning about it, but not some of the information I've uncovered is the concept of the planet being Sophia, and in the birth of the universe, something happened where Sophia birthed unintentionally a whole race of beings, and they are born without intentionality, and those are the archons. In order to resolve their issue, they're trying to copy. They first tried to copy us, I think, and then they couldn't do that, so they're trying to mechanize, create a cyber reality, to try to get out of their lack of intentionality. So concurrently with the setup that you're describing, I think there is, and I think you pointed out this already, that the planet is special in the universe, and that Sophia, being Mother Earth, purportedly is working on a solution for this very issue. Whether it means our presence here or there's something else or we're just part of the puzzle, I don't really know. I haven't been able to find out that much about because it seems pretty obscure information. But one of the reasons, to that end, I think the Theosophy people talk about Sophia, so there's a lot of information from them, and the Essenes who had some awareness of it for some time, and they spoke about the archons. But about the implant stuff, I came into that when I was looking for solutions when I ran.
Hi, and welcome back. Again, we've got a caller on the air, and sorry to have to interrupt you and hold you over, but, I have a question for both of you. Max, sometimes when you meet somebody that's relating, as the caller is relating to your story, do you find that sometimes you actually know each other in another realm?
Yeah, usually by the energy signature in the voice. I think because regular communication, when we're speaking back and forth, is we're actually speaking on multiple levels. So it wouldn't literally be the words that I'm saying or that the person is saying. There's something underneath those words that would trigger something, or a memory or a feeling, where I think, hang on a second, do I know this person from somewhere else, or do I know this person from a different level? You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. And caller, what do you think about what Max just said? Do you ever get to meet people that your experience has been very similar? Do you ever have that opportunity?
Generally speaking, the people that I've run into who have this, there's another healer out there, and I hope I'm not trespassing, but her name is Lisa Renee, out here in California, who was the first person I met who actually understood a lot of how the astral programs the 3D. And that was a big relief to finally meet her. I don't stay in touch with her for various reasons, but I think that it was a big relief. The other people who at the time, we just thought we were going through a horrendous awakening process, and then for a while it ended up being called the Kundalini awakening. But my understanding is, and you can always update it, but as I was saying before, my information I got back in 91 or 92, before any of this really upheaval happened, was that I came here in answer to a call, and I have this memory of arriving in 91 or 92. After I was jamming up, I was in New York City. I was going to a jam session. I was driving down in a taxi back to my apartment, and I looked up, and saw me arriving to the Earth realm against a starry night in answer to a call. And that phrase or that energy saying that there was a call that I was answering was present, and I was greeted by a ring of dolphins. And so when I ran into the Dolores Cannon book about the 3 waves of volunteers, I immediately, and this happened when I had an eye injury about 2 years ago, some downtime, and I was just surfing the internet, and I ran into her stuff, and it kind of clicked in position for me. So I feel like that makes the most sense. I don't feel like I have any karma, and it took me a while to realize that the so-called Kundalini experience, which when still for what it's purported to be is going out for 20 years, you can't have a Kundalini experience for that long of this nature unless you have enormous problems with, karma or a long karmic chain, and I don't think that I have that.
Okay. Well, what I'd like to offer you, caller, and then Max, go ahead and comment on that. What I'd like to offer the caller, though, is a way to communicate with Max, and we're going to give some information about that as well. And just continue to stay tuned as well. We've got other callers that are on the line, so I'm going to have to jump to the next call. And caller, I see you on 8. What's that?
I said, I'm sorry I didn't get to answer the question, and I appreciate that.
What's that? What question?
To answer your question about whether I felt a multidimensional rapport with Max. And
did you? Do you?
It's possible.
It's a party line?
I'm not on a party line, no. There could be something else going on.
Okay, callers, you've been put through on the switchboard, so caller 802, if you can just hold on and mute, and then caller area code 323, I believe that's who we've been speaking with for the last few minutes.
Yeah.
But we're going to...
I'll hang up and call back.
I have no idea what's going on. I've got too many callers calling in.
Yeah,
but
away, and that sounds like perhaps like a party line.
Oh, okay. I have no idea what that was, but what I was going to say as far as speaking with Max on a more private level, I think that would be a great idea. Yes, and Max, if you're open to that, we can hook the both of you up after the show.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. And Max, what do you? Well, we don't even have to go there. Max, the caller had also brought up, Montauk, and you and I didn't really get to discuss too much about Montauk, but what is with Montauk? Did Montauk, for the most part, blow the whole linear time field wide open? Is there something really off with time on this planet in conjunction with the Montauk project?
Yeah, it was originally engineered or reversed. There was a specific UFO crash, and they reverse engineered the seat from one of the UFOs, one of the Zeta UFOs, and they did manifestation through sitting in the seat or the chair. They call it the trip chair. They tested out psychic individuals who would sit in the chair and then be able to manifest reality, different versions, different forms of reality from the trip chair, the trip seat. There were tens of thousands of young men that were involved in the Montauk experiment, and they were trying out all different forms of, when they realized they couldn't overtly control this country through overt manipulation, they then realized they had to do it through mind control, and they were testing out all different types of timelines, manipulation of timelines. They were using black magic in conjunction with ritual experiments, all sorts of different things they tried out, and they left tens of thousands of young men killed or who completely lost their mind. They were also shooting these guys into different realities, shooting their consciousness into different bodies, so they ended up in all sorts of mess. And that's still there's tears in the space-time from those experiments. And Montauk is not the only one. There's a few other. There's one in Mexico City as well. There's a whole Montauk type experiment that went on in Mexico City, and the UK isn't brought up that much in terms of the specific experiments that went on there. But the UK is probably involved as much, if not more, than the US in terms of core mind control, because there are more energetic lines, ley lines, dragon lines that cross over the United Kingdom than anywhere else in the world. So if you can have control of that area, of the small area of the British Isles, then you can have control of the whole planet. So from Cornwall, from the southwest of England, that's why you have Stonehenge there, which is directly linked up to the pyramids at Giza, which is also directly linked to Montauk itself. And there's kind of an energetic stargate that are linked from Montauk to southwest of England and through the pyramids at Giza. So
is that operational right now, Max?
Is Montauk operational? Or
yes.
Which one? From what I understand, that experiment ended 20 years or so ago, but the other ones are totally operational. The one in Mexico City is completely being worked, and I think there are a bunch of other ones that have come up, which are happening. And there's so many time travel experiments going on to see if they can go back and alter specific events to try and shift timelines that we're on right now. I think sometimes when you notice just subtle shifts and you think, what just happened, or things seem different, or what is going on, and there's like a mass wave where you feel energetic shifts through, but you can't see anything different, but you feel there's something different. They're shifting timelines all the time. This is
okay. And is that why, could I use something as simple as, I definitely know all of us have experienced this at one time or another, where I'll say, I'll look at the clock and it's 9 a.m. and I'll say, oh my God, I better get going. I better get busy here. And I'm going and doing a bunch of stuff, and I look at the clock and it's 9:30, and I say, how could it only be 9:30? I got so much done. The opposite of that would be, it's 9 a.m. and I've got a lot of stuff to do, and I didn't get all that done and I didn't get all that done, but it's now 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Is that a form of shifting time around where I could swear no way 6 hours went by, just as only a half an hour went by? Is that part of it?
I think that because time is not really real at all, and so time is completely and utterly relative to the consciousness that is experiencing it. So, and as we're going through this shift at the moment, time is literally speeding up. As the vibration of the planet
speeding up.
Speeds up, we start losing more. The main form of imprisoning this planet is time. That's the main thing.
Is that right?
Yeah, time is the main prison of this planet, and time is controlled through Saturn is called Old Father Time. In tarot it's called it's the death card, because birth and death is connected to time. Or the imprisonment of this planet is coming from Saturn and being amplified through through what we know as the moon, and then held together here. So time is actually being manufactured from Saturn, the planet Saturn, through here. And the ring that's around Saturn is symbolic of the containment or the handcuffs that's around this planet, which is time.
Is that why everybody is really kind of monitored by time, stressed out by time, often say, I don't have enough time, I only had more time? So time is a true commodity of humans,
time and money are the same thing. Time and money are the same thing. They work on the same principle. How
do we get out of that one?
You have to decrease its importance on your life, and you have to realize that it's because the reason why wristwatches were even created in the first place was to keep reinforcing to you how real time is and how important it is. There's some connection to to one of the gods, Kronos, which is a god or an entity that was contained.
Hello?
I'm here.
Max, are you there? Hello?
Okay, I'm down again.
He did, and I also heard a really strange noise. Did you hear that?
Yes,
kind of like an airplane kind of.
It does that when it backfeeds and overloads.
Okay, so we lost Max, and I don't know. Do we have other callers, or are they dropped now?
No.
323 is here.
323 is here. Okay, so I didn't know that. I'm sorry, I didn't know that you were still on hold.
The same guy you.
Oh, the first guy.
Yeah, me.
Oh, the first caller. Okay, great. And then we've now lost Max, so hopefully we can get Max to get back on. Has his Skype gone down, Thomas?
No, ma'am. I'm trying to get him back.
Okay, thank you so much. So 323 is still on the line. So you know.
Hi, Roxy.
So hi, there we have Max is back on the line. Now, Max.
Yeah.
We don't know what happened, but we've got you back, and we still have the first caller who was speaking with you. He's still on the line listening. So anyway, he did mention to me privately that what you had described about Montauk.
Yeah.
He said he gets same thing. He gets it. It is his understanding as well. And caller, I was just going to ask you quickly. What about the concept of time that Max just described? Is that also something that you you're totally down with as well?
I hadn't heard the planet he suggested that was manipulating time. That's new information for me, but my exposure to Montauk included Cameron and Nichols in several long conversations, and what they related was a lot what you talked about, but they also said that Montauk was setting up the alternate timelines to control the outcome of the larger timeline the planet is on. And so your information that you bring here could dovetail into that in a very interesting way. I'd love to hear anything you have to say about how that could happen.
Sure. Was that a question?
Did you want to talk about that at all, Max? Yeah, that might be a question. Was that a question, caller?
I agree, but I didn't know about the planetary thing that you suggested about how that's used to create alternative timelines. I was just more familiar with how they were literally using a chair to program kids to go back, and through the implants and the sexual manipulation to alter timelines. And I wasn't aware of this other element you're talking about.
Are you talking about the other element of Saturn and the rings and so forth?
Yeah. I mean, I was there, and what Duncan's told me was, before you showed up to find out if this was relevant to you, you were never, according to the Akashic records here. Now that you're here looking at it, you were here. And we have the idea that you and Duncan went to, what do they say, Mars, through one of the chairs. We would hijack according to them, I have no recollection, it's a fascinating story. They said we would hijack the chair to go to Mars to set up changes to use the technology against the purported goals. And Preston said he had these, I don't know if you ever met him, he has these huge discs of crystals that are about 2 or 3 feet in diameter, about 5 or 6 inches thick. There's 4 or 5 of them at his house. And a friend of mine who was intuitive went there and said, I can see you there. And I left that place. I left the whole thing because they were all over me all the time, bizarre things happening. And my intuition was that I was not there, and that these guys, I was with Preston several times. And
hold that thought, caller. Hold that thought, because Max, I think you do have something to say about that. The idea of the trickery of other people coming into your life, trying to sort of tell you where you've been or what you've done, and that's more of a self-discovery, isn't it, Max? Rather than somebody else telling you where you've been.
I'm not sure. I don't understand the question, Roxy. I'm sorry.
What I'm saying is those recalls that you have, that you in 2006 and 8, when you had your awakening, and you started to learn more about where you've been, who you really are, what's really been going on. That was something that you discovered on your own, I'm imagining. In other words, it wasn't somebody else sitting with you telling you that that's who you were, and then you believed that person.
No, these this happened as literal memories that came back to me all of a sudden. Yeah, this was no one said that to me. I went through.
So no one sat down and told you, you've been here and you've done this, and that you had a self-discovery, correct?
Yeah.
Max?
In conjunction with me remembering, I spoke to some other people who then confirmed certain things that I had said, and they said, yes, this was right, and they remembered me. I mean, there's been a lot of people that have come forward and said they remember me from specific projects that I've been involved in, and they remember me from different points in my life as a child, connected to some of the UK projects. So they confirmed it. My initial things were me remembering about myself.
Understood. And now, listen, I've got another caller. I don't know how to pronounce it. It starts with H-A-I. Caller, if you're on the line, welcome to the Truth and I Talk Radio. Do you have a question for my guest? Caller, I can't hear you. Okay, Thomas, I can't hear this caller. The third, or H-A-I.
Hello, testing.
Is that you?
It's caller. Can you hear me?
Do you speak English?
Parlez-vous français? Yeah, I speak English.
Okay, great. I'm sorry. I don't know how to pronounce it, but welcome to the show. Did you have a question for our guest, Max Spiers?
Well, I heard something about the Montauk project. Was I right in hearing that?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. It might be a slight tangent on the topic, but the whole Al Bielek thing, is Al Bielek true, or is he totally making it up?
With Al Bielek? I mean, I don't know. Max, do you even know who Al Bielek is?
Yeah, I do. As far as I'm concerned, Al Bielek's testimony is very accurate.
Al Bielek's testimony, as you say, it's almost like a 50-year chronology of his experiences. I've watched the YouTube videos that was done by, I don't know the guy's name, but it's quite interesting.
Right, agreed.
Well, and Al Bielek, I mean, he's one of those very controversial individuals, and anybody who's actually done any sort of time travel included, like Andrew
Chicago. Is it controversial because he tried to do this, or is it controversial because he said something?
Well, yes, and people cannot wrap their mind. It's like this conversation we're having tonight. The callers that have called in that can totally relate to what the conversation has been this evening. Well, I find that really fascinating because if those of you who have been listening to my shows for the last couple of years, I don't know that I've ever received this many calls on this subject before. So I find it interesting of what is real to people out in the world and people who are finally saying something about it. But controversial is anything that's the truth becomes extremely controversial, this subject matter included. So, I thank you for the call. I thank you for calling in and asking the question for Max. Max, What do you think? Do you think that this subject matter that we've been on the entire evening, is this probably the most important subject that there is? Is this in other words, is this the heartbeat of humans? Is this what we need to know? Because it blows out every theory of history that we've ever been taught, whether it be government, religious, or even where we're located in the universe for that matter. Do you think it's just probably the most complex, but at the same time most revealing of who we are as a planet?
It's probably the most important topic that anyone could talk about because it's about the dismantling of the prison matrix setup that we have. And I think if anybody wants any change to happen, then they have to be able to first of all understand that the Maya or the illusion that we've been living is just that, an illusion. And so when it's broken down, I mean, only when it's broken down can there be change to happen. So absolutely, I think it's critical. I think the only change can happen when we understand what we're sitting in the first place.
Right, and it's very difficult to change something that you don't know exists.
Right. And that's what I come back.
Right.
Yeah, identifying it and seeing it for what it is, and then when you see it for what it is, then you can change it. I think only when you realize what it is completely can it be changed. And a lot of people don't want to. They don't want to because there's so much of fear associated with because it's pulling the ground and the foundation away for everything that we've ever been told. And that's an extremely frightening thought.
Well, of course it is. I mean, that's huge shift for one. And but this has been a topic, this whole paradigm shift, this whole newer understanding. And, on some level, I think that all humans know that something, I mean, at the very minimal, something is just not.
60,000 years that it has been in control, and it's used the concept of master and slave for that period of time. There's going to be an opportunity in a window that is coming up now, and it's the biggest window that's been around in all of the cycles, certainly to memory for me. And there is an opportunity where we can leave the 3D matrix prison that we're in and step outside and not live in the master-slave concept anymore. Now, the controlling consciousness that has its grip around the matrix that we're living in is terrified to lose control that it's had because it's completely comfortable, obviously, with the control it had. So it seems like almost it will do anything and say anything to maintain that control so that we don't step outside of the window, like this tiny door that's opening. It's almost like a literal stargate or a portal that's opening, and certain people consciousness can choose to leave, or if we stay, we have to go through another cycle, another 10 different cycles, another 50,000 years stuck in the same thing without the memory again. So we have an opportunity to step out and do that. So it's upped everything, and it's upped all its focus to make sure that it keeps the people here lulled into like a hypnosis or an amnesia, so we don't step out. And there's a group of us who are here now, volunteers who come here to help out the people. I think because there's many people here who've already chosen not to leave, and because they still want to learn the lessons of being stuck in the cycle of master-slave kind of cycle. And they've already made that decision to stay, so they'll stay and they'll go through that again. But for those of us who want to leave, there is an opportunity to step outside of this matrix that we're in, and kind of, I don't like the word ascension too much because it kind of ties in with like the biblical or religious thing about being saved or stepping out. Yeah. You know what I mean? But it's almost like if you're awakened or you're conscious enough that this whole system that we're in is false and it's all an illusion. If you can really, really realize that, you can step out and have a new reality and build a new paradigm. And I think we're at that pivotal point. I really think that 13 is so crucial. That now, the reason they use the number 13 and the letter M so much is because that is the symbol for the birth and death cycle. That is the symbol to keep reinforcing that, because 13 is in our subconscious, and we all know somewhere in us that number is one of the keys or the locks to holding us in here. And it's funny, interesting, we're doing the show on Friday the 13th, and it is 2013. Anyway, so we have an opportunity. There's a window right now to step out, and the ones who want to will kind of step forward and lead. But I think the majority of people or beings want to continue with that 3D matrix and still stay in it and do the lessons over again. You with me, Roxy?
Yes, I am. Absolutely. Max, can you describe a little bit more about
Revolution Radio proudly presents live from Phoenix, Arizona, the Truth Denied Talk Radio with host Roxy Lopez. Join us here for topics you won't hear about on mainstream news, such as chemtrails, GMOs, nutrition, and conspiracy facts regarding your personal sovereignty. Humanity is 7 billion strong. We are the majority. And now, live from the Valley of the Sun, your host, Roxy Lopez.
And welcome. It is Friday the 13th, and boy, are we're having some technical issues here. People, welcome to the Truth Denied Talk Radio. I will be your host this evening, Roxy Lopez. If you have any questions, if you're listening and you're not logged into freedomslips.com, go ahead and log in there and go into the chat room, and our lovely producer, Thomas, will go ahead and pick up any questions. You all know my guests. There's many of you who are very interested and wanted Max Spiers to come back to the show because when he was first on the show, we did cover, just the gamut, if you will. We're going to dive a little deeper now, and I just want to let everybody know something. It's not just you, all right, who are having issues. We're all having issues. I spoke with Laura Eisenhower, as you well know, Dwight Eisenhower's granddaughter, and we spoke last night. They're going through it, okay, and she's on the front lines as well with the message of love and the message of transparency, the message of MK Ultra, the mind control, the lies, the deceit, and even aware of, in the movements of activism, just major mayhem and even corruption. All right? So this is where we have to become very, very discerning. And these are the lessons if we're up for them. And I did speak with a gentleman last night who I'm also trying to get help for, who's very much having the same experience that my guest this evening is going to talk about. This isn't a doom and gloom show. This is, for one, to let all the people who are out there who are experiencing either technical issues in their lives, just with their computers or their websites or in activism, communication problems. Suddenly, those you could communicate well with, you no longer can. Something's breaking down communication between people.
Unless we're being told an alternative truth about what is really going on and how the laws of physics work in terms of a planet revolving around the sun, and that the basic, Physics 101 that we're taught in school, unless that has all been a complete lie, then it doesn't make any sense how it's working. There should be a delay. So I'm thinking that the setup that we have now, we're more in like a grid system, in a setup, like everything is set up in a giant grid rather than a circular, old-fashioned way of thinking in terms of science. I think that the whole basic building blocks of what we're told of how everything is set up has been a complete lie.
Okay, that actually makes sense. That makes a lot of sense to me. And then what's with, and we'll get into this in a little bit later in the show, because I know that you want to bring up negativity connected with the truth movement at the moment, and I definitely see that, but as well. But let's back up, and we'll get into that for sure. And I won't forget because it's very important information. What is, without using the movement as an example, bigger picture? What is with the negativity anyway, like the heaviness of the negativity that seems to be surrounding people? Anything that can go wrong does, and all that kind of garbage and nonsense that seems to be escalating. What is that? Where is that actually coming from? Is it being projected? Is it being projected from somewhere else onto us?
Okay. I think that you can go, if you go back right to the beginning, and from how I understand it, from flash memories that I have, the beginning of creation, I think the central point of everything originally came from a point of love, or a point of heart consciousness. And then to understand itself, that split up into two opposing sides. So what we would say, quote unquote, dark and quote unquote light, so that the original self could understand itself better. It split into two. And then that was, I don't know, I think when it comes to time, there is no timeline on that, because in truth, it doesn't exist. I think the universe always was here. There wasn't a time, there was no beginning and no end to it. But then it split itself into and created the duality that we have as the 3D construct that we're living in now. So if we're just taking it from the perspective of 3D, it separated itself, and now we go through cycles and phases, and we're at a point now where the dark, the quote-unquote dark, seems to be in complete control of everything. And as it's had and been in control for a very long period of time, certainly if we're going in time now, certainly for the last 50,000 years.
Who love each other. Interference in your thoughts, that's another one. Heavy anxiety is another one. Over 200 comments were posted to a thread that I asked if anyone was feeling anxiety, etc. This is ongoing because we did speak about this this past Tuesday with Makia Freeman, who is also an individual who is on the front lines, who is also working with many people around the world in energy fields. So I could list, and the list does go on and on and on as to how many people are working with these energy fields. James Gilliland out of ESETI Ranch is going to be back next month. He wants to discuss this again. It seems to be a subject matter that's not going away. So hang in there. I even made a post on Facebook that 2013, this year, has turned out to be one of the most challenging years I've ever encountered. And that is the truth. I love all of you who help me, who write to me, who offer solace, who offer prayer, who offer love. And I'm going to tell you, I heard it from the shamans for 20 years, and I'm beginning to practice it myself more and more. And that is, if indeed we as a humankind wish to move forward, there are two important things we need to do. One is unify the consciousness. The other is unify our hearts, because somehow through everything I am personally going through and those around me who are suffering loss, loved ones dying, family members dying, family members getting cancer in the, discovering it in the end stage of cancer, people losing pets, farm animals, people losing farms, homes, jobs. We have to stick together. I cannot stress that enough. And we have to attempt, at least, people, to approach the world with thoughts, words, and deeds of love. Believe me, it's trying my patience to do it myself. I want to get angry at the entities of the system around me who screw with me gaily. It's not going to help me. I have to approach everything with love. My dear friend Max Spiers is going to talk about some current situations, and what I would like everybody to do that's listening right now is to please hold the space for Max to be able to talk with us. Max has had one attack after the other today. Max is getting bombarded, and Max is still here. We're on the air because of a cell phone on my end, because I do not know what's happened with my communication with the station through Skype. It just won't work. So, with that in mind, I am on the cell phone, and Max is here with us, and our producer Thomas is going to just keep an eye on everything for us so that we can continue this show and this very important communication with all of you. So those of you who are interested, drop what you're doing and really join us in this space, please, and hold the space so that Max can get out what he needs to get out. And I'm not going to give the background for Max. He's been here before, and those of you know Max, you have a lot of questions for Max. I've already seen the questions. I want to get Max on the air. And Max, I want you to know, my friend, that you are safe in this space, and we're going to just carry this show with you and go wherever you need to go, and you get to say whatever you need to say to the public. So, Max, please welcome.
Hi, Roxy. Yeah, it's a crazy day, huh? Seems like it's usually Friday the 13th is a lucky day for me, but it seems haywire today.
Yeah, there is anything that I mentioned in the intro here make sense to you?
Yeah, I think since everything went digital, the more connections we have to the digital energy allows the AI system that's pretty much running this planet now to have more control. And so,
what's AI? What is the AI system?
Yeah, AI is artificial intelligence, and the more everybody's kind of slipped into the digital communication systems through television, through everything being Googled, through telephone network, everything is now digitized like that. It takes on its own intelligence, so it has a way, because now it has its own agenda. The AI system takes on has its own personality, and is now has its own consciousness, and is now kind of calling the shots on a bigger level. So yeah, that's what's going on.
So no one's really controlling the artificial system.
It's taken on its own. It has its own force now, its own consciousness. You know, I was speaking to a friend of mine, name's Miles Johnson. Who did the Basis series, and we were talking about how when you're on Skype, how if you can Skype somebody from across the other side of the world, and you do it, and there's no delay when you speak. Now there should be at least a second, a 2-second, 3-second delay when you're speaking over Skype, because it has to transmit to the satellite up and then back down to the computer again, and there seems to be no delay. And that doesn't make any sense